My name is James Chirwa. So I'm with Afrinic. Throughout the day, we've seen a few interesting presentations. We've heard about SDN, SD1, NG, domain, internet penetration. One thing that kept coming up was IP addresses. So, anyone who doesn't know what an IP address is, I'm sure pretty much of us are in the technical field in terms of internet, right? So, Afrinic, what do we do? Okay. Seems like the clicker is not working yet. Control. Yeah, so anyway, I'll just keep on talking. Afrinic, what do we basically do? I'm sure most of us remember Edith's presentation regarding NG domain, right? So basically, Afrinic, we are more of another service that we are dedicated to run. We are one of the 5 regional internet registries. So what do we do? Basically, we manage IP number resources. And when we talk about IP number resources, we are talking of IPv4, IPv6, as well as autonomous system numbers. So all these services that we've heard about, SDN, SD1, domains, websites, emails, all these, there's one underlying resource that they require. That's what we call the IP resources. IP addresses, IPv4, IPv6. So, scope of my presentation today, we are covering these particular things. We'll look at what we mean by the IP numbers, how these numbers are managed, and managing this, when we give you the IP number resources, what you need to do to manage them. I'll also give you a brief of the status quo regarding the current consumption of IPv4 that we have. I'm sure pretty much most of us know that all the other 4 regional registries no longer have IPv4 available. So it's only Afrinic, and I'll give you an update on that. And I'll also give you an update on services that we give on top of these IP addresses, as well as give you an update on some of other things, including policies. So, like I've said, this is what we define by IP number resources. We are talking about autonomous system numbers. Okay, I can't. So yeah, anyway, here I can get it. So this is an IPv4 address. This is an IPv6 address, and we have an ASN on the other side. So basically, that's what we do. There are guiding principles when we work. What we really want to achieve includes these particular numbers. They are unique. They have to be unique for each and every particular network operator. So we have a registration of these particular numbers. There's a particular tool that we use, you will see in the next slide, for registration. We also have objective to ensure that we do aggregate these number resources as much as possible for each and every operator. Reason being, the internet has a routing table. The more we break down these numbers and push them to the internet, the bigger the routing table grows. In the end, it will require a lot of router resources. So keeping a smaller internet routing table is quite of importance, because most operators may not be able to keep up with the demands of the routers, and it may cost them more. So like I said, internet number resources, how do we manage these number resources? we use what is called a whois database. So whois database is a tool whereby you have to, any operator or anybody can access just to know who is using what particular IP resource. The database itself uses what we call routing policy. Yeah, it's called routing policy specification language. You can read more about it, but in that particular specification language, these are some of the objects that we use to represent these particular IP resources. So understanding these particular terms for these particular objects makes it simple for you to work with this particular whois database. On top of the number resources, these three that I've mentioned of, we also maintain what we call domains. So I'll bring you back to the earlier presentation regarding ngNOG. We're also talking about domains, right? So a domain at the back of it would definitely be represented by an IP address. So once you know a domain, you would be able to know a particular, let's say maybe a website, you would be able to know a particular IP address behind that particular website. So let's give an example. You have an IP address that maybe you've noted somewhere and is providing a certain service. In this particular case, you will use this particular domain for us to be able to do the reverse and be able to know the particular website that is using that IP address you have. So this domain we deal with is called reverse DNS dedication. Another thing is routes. This one important factor. I'll talk more about it when I reach the slides regarding hijacks. Prefix hijacking is something that is becoming more popular nowadays. So I'll touch on that, but there are more sessions coming regarding that as from Wednesday. So I'll just briefly now talk about what, I know most of you here could be our members. You already have the IP resources, but mostly what we realize is most people don't know what to do once you get the particular resources. So I'll talk about this and I'll talk about how you can do it. So this is just small steps that you have to follow once you get resources from Afrinic. So we advise that once you get them, you have to access our portal. You see the link to the portal, but you need to create what we call route objects. Like I said, these will help you stay safe on the internet. They will guard you against hijacks that we're talking about. Similarly, route objects authorization, that's another tool. It's a service that we provide. You can use that tool to also increase security of your IP traffic. So how do you do it? You access that particular site. This is only accessible by members. If you are a member of Afrinic, you have IP resources from us, you definitely have access to this. Otherwise, you may as well use this particular site. We have a web interface here. It's open. It will allow you to do certain things that either are not permitted in the first site, or you can you still be able to also. Okay. So on this particular web interface, you can do things that you're able to do from here, but also additionally some others that are not accessible here. The third one is an email. You can send an email to that particular email address. It will help you also create some of the objects that you want regarding maybe how you are using your particular IP space, or maybe how you want to define your routing policies. So these are the three tools that you can use for easy of managing your IP resources. Okay. So, like I said, I've spoken about the usage, what you need to do, but why are we really spending time talking about these IP resources? Like I said, service operators need these particular resources to run their services. I mentioned that Afrinic is the one remaining with this particular, especially for IPv4. So IPv6 is still there. If I may ask, how many here are running IPv6 on their networks? 3. So I can see very few, just about 5 hands. 5 hands out of the rest of us, which is concerning. Why? Because if you can see these figures, we are almost depleted as well. Afrinic has also almost finished its IPv4 pool. If anything, we may as well complete, not completely, but reach what we call phase 2 of soft landing phase. What does that phase 2 mean? We'll see next. But right now, by end of November, we may reach phase 2 of soft landing. Right now, we are in phase 1. Implementation of phase 1 is that an operator can come and you can get up to a /13 of IPv4. The day we reach, this is just a graph for that, but the day we reach phase 2, which I said we may reach end of November, that means everybody who wants IPv4 can only get a /22 or less than that. So I know Nigeria is big in numbers, and I know you have big operators in terms of operations and numbers as well, our customer base, that is. So let's think of it. What would a /22? That's 1,024 IPs. What would they do to you if you want to scale up your services? Will it be enough? But now, that's the thing. Afrinic can't give you more than that once we reach phase 2. Implication, what are we doing? Are we thinking of IPv6? Or are we still thinking of going through some not easy to scale products that are out in the market? That's a question for us to think about. But basically, this brings up a question. It's food for thought for most operators, especially here where we know. And at a time where we've been talking about increasing internet penetration across the country and overall across the continent. This is something that we can think of. How are we going to penetrate the markets when the basic resource we can't? So that's something to think of. IPv6, lucky enough, for those who don't have, you can as well come and see us. We have our booth. It was said by one of the presenters earlier on. If you have IPv4 with Afrinic, you can get IPv6 at no cost, at no additional cost. So we also have a session, what we call a deployathon session, as from Wednesday, whereby those who have IPv6, I'm sure you've already been communicated to, you must have applied for, you will work out a session where you start from planning all the way to be able to hopefully announce some of your, part of your infrastructure also to the internet. That's part of our growth in terms of IPv6 adoption. That's something we are doing. But we at this particular juncture, when we are approaching a time where IPv4 will be completely limited, I think it's time to think more of it. Another issue that this particular exhaustion is going to cause is this particular thing, hijacking and squatting. So this is what happens. You have your prefix, somebody else decides to announce your prefix. What happens? Your services will definitely be disturbed. So this is happening already, and There are means that we are trying to resolve this. I've spoken about root objects, RPKI. Those are some of the means we are trying to control these particular issues of IP hijacking and squatting. So you need to think about it. There are always means to bypass all these issues I've raised here. Hijacks and squatting, and as well as IPv4 exhaustion. So moving on to that, I'll just now talk more about these tools I've spoken about regarding preventing your traffic. These are some of the services that we provide on top of the IP resources that we give you. So when we give you the resources, there are things that you can do beyond just deploying or implementing the IPs on your networks. First of all, we'll look at Internet Routing Registry. So this is where you store your routing policy information. It's a distributed system as well. For us, it runs together with our WHOI service, so it makes it simple. I spoke about RPSL, still uses the same language. Bottom line, it is important and we are encouraging users. For those who would like to get more information, see me at the booth anytime. Just a simple adoption, you would see that, like I say, hijacks are getting more and more. You can see just how the uptake is also becoming. Unfortunately, West African side, it hasn't been the same. If you can see the contrast in the two graphs, you see how continent-wide is growing and how on our western side is not. So, which means we are basically, most of us, learning and secure prefixes over the internet. We need to think of the solution. So another one is RPKI. Yeah, I'm running out of time, but we can also talk about this for those who are interested. Meet me at the booth. I can take you. We can even go to as far as signing your route object authorizations. So for those who want to implement this, we can have a chat. I encourage you to take some time. Just an adoption, you see similarly, there is a trend here that shows an uptake compared to the previous time. So these are all signs that something is changing across the world. People are adopting new technologies just to make sure that they survive well on the internet. So don't be left behind. Be part of it. Reverse DNS and DNSSEC. I'm seeing there's a presentation regarding DNSSEC, so I'll not talk much on that. The other one is coming later. So anyway, another thing that we do is also we provide, now we allow IP. This may come in handy when we reach the phase 2, whereby you can no longer get anything more than a /22. You may be able to get somebody within the region who can transfer it to you as long as they don't have any particular need of it. So that's a possibility. You can think of that. But we also admit for operators who have acquired each other or they've gone through a merger and acquisition, that's another way you can transfer IP resources. So just a brief update. There are a few things that we've introduced based on what we faced over the period. So we realized that some organizations were having issues making payments to Afrinic. Using credit cards because maybe one of the person or they wanted somebody else to pay for them from somewhere. So we've introduced credit card payment that does not require you to log into the members portal. You can just go on our login page, you'll find the link, you'll be able to pay. Another thing is, I don't know whether Nigeria has withholding tax regime, but if your central bank does, you can declare in advance. Just go log into the portal, declare the amount that is charged. In that way, the invoice that will be generated will take care of everything. That will help you ahead of time, just because if you don't do it, you may end up paying, but if they deduct that, it still leaves your account in debt. So it doesn't look good because the day you want a service, at times you may not be allowed to access any service. So that's a thing that you can take care of in advance before it's too late. We are also introducing the IRR integration. This particular service lands outside the members portal, but we are working on implementing it within the portal so that members only log in into the portal and work with it from there. PPKI enrollment interface. PPKI comes together with RPKI. So this one currently is kind of a hectic task to do, but we are introducing an interface whereby it will be just have to provide 3 types of information, click, and your certificate will be generated. So that's another thing that's coming up shortly. Lastly, I'll just quickly talk, just introduce on the policies. Like I said, we are a regional internet registry. So basically, we work on we have a governance structure. So part of the governance structure stipulates that policies are created to govern just how we manage these particular IP resources. So who actually develops these particular policies is what we call the community. Anyone from here makes part of the community. As long as you're an internet user, you form part of that community. But what we've seen is there is little participation. However, these particular policies impact everybody. So what we encourage is participate, be part of the discussion, make the decisions that will work for you. In the future, you will not have to complain when a particular policy doesn't really fit what you want. So otherwise, that's what I can encourage you. Please, and you see some of just the links you can access. If you want to, you can subscribe to that list.afrinic.net to get yourself engaged within those policy discussions. You can also contact us at Afrinic, Hostmaster at Afrinic or IRR regarding anything on IRR. That's all that I have for you, and thank you.